I'm not hating on Quinn Ewers, but we all should agree that Quinn Ewers is the most overhyped quarterback in the history of college football. Because I don't know how many of you guys remember how much hype this dude had when he was coming out of high school, but he was the fifth highest rated quarterback in recruiting history. He was fifth right behind Vince Young, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, and a few other quarterbacks. And with him getting so much buzz coming out of high school, you would have thought that you were getting the most OP quarterback ever. And he hasn't been bad at Texas. As a matter of fact, he's been pretty good, but that's the problem. He's been pretty good and not great. For all of the hype that he had coming out of high school, you would have expected this dude to be a two-time Heisman winner and a two-time national champion at this point. But the problem with Quinn Ewers has been, for one, he has struggled to stay healthy, and two, in big games, he has been wildly streaky. Last year in the playoffs against Washington, he struggled for the first 3 quarters and a half until he finally woke up late in the third and had a really good fourth quarter. But in the SEC championship this year against Georgia, he was really off. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and when Carson Beck went down, I would have thought that Quinn Ewers would have ended up winning this game for Texas, because Georgia starter is down and you're going up against a backup. That should make it easier for you to lead your team to a win. And I never really viewed Carson Beck as a program-changing quarterback ever since his first couple of years in Austin. And with this being his final season, I was expecting to see the quarterback that had all this hype coming out of high school, because at one point he was viewed to be the greatest high school quarterback ever. He had a fantastic arm. He could throw from all of these different arm angles, pretty good athlete. And at Texas, he just hasn't really matured into the player that a lot of folks that run these recruiting sites thought when they were evaluating him. And he does have a pretty good arm. He is really accurate at times, but he's just been so inconsistent, so up and down. And in the biggest moments, in the biggest games, he normally tends to come up short. Against Georgia, with the ball in your hands in overtime, with the guy that was the 5th highest rated quarterback prospect ever coming out of high school, you would have said he's going to take over this game. How many games has Quinn Ewers really taken over at Texas? Not too many. His best performance of the 2024 college football season was when they went on the road and completely took over Ann Arbor, Michigan. That was the best game I've ever seen Quinn Ewers play, because he was completely flawless in that game. But outside of that performance, it's just been a lot of so-so games. Like against Texas A&M, he didn't look that good in that game either. It's just, you expect more out of somebody that is one of the highest rated quarterbacks that ever come out of high school, and he hasn't lived up to his potential. Now, just because he hasn't lived up to his potential doesn't mean that he's trash, he's mid. I think he's a good quarterback, but he was overhyped considering the expectations that he had coming out of high school. Arch Manning is going to be completely different. And the fact that there isn't really a big gap between Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning shows you that Quinn Ewers hasn't really developed into the guy that most of us thought he would be. Because with the way people were talking about him, they made it seem like he was going to be able to bring Texas back to a national championship. Now, he's done a really good job, along with Steve Sarkisian, of bringing Texas football back to relevancy. You feel me? Now people are talking about Texas again on a national level. It no longer is the question of, is Texas ever going to be back? Texas is back, and they've been back for the last 2 years, thanks to Quinn Ewers and Steve Sarkisian, but they really haven't truly been back completely, because they have yet to appear in the national championship game. When you get somebody like a Quinn Ewers out of high school, you get so excited because you're like, yes, this is one of those quarterbacks like a Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields that can transcend our program to being in that national championship game. And his career has not really materialized that way. And that's why he's not going to be a first-round pick in the 2025 NFL draft. He most likely is going to be a second or third-round quarterback, just because he just hasn't really reached his full potential. And oftentimes you have recruits that have careers like Quinn Ewers where they had so much hype coming out of high school, and the hype kind of was a little bit too much for them to handle. And, you know, they just have a good career. You look at, you say, we appreciate what you did for our program, but, you know, we're ready to move on to whoever's behind you because he could be the next great quarterback that could really get us to that national championship. And Quinn Ewers was a good, you know, bridge quarterback to help Texas get back into being in that national championship conversation. But Arch Manning, to me, is going to be that quarterback that ends up getting Texas to that next level. But, you know, in my opinion, I don't know how many of you guys feel the same way I do, but Quinn Ewers was just so overhyped. And I remember all of the articles I used to read about him. Is he going to be better than Vince Young? When he went to Ohio State, got that $1 million NIL deal, people made such a big deal about it. He was really one of the first high school recruits to really get that big of an NIL package. And then, you know, he does that 1 year at Ohio State, and he goes to Texas right after to the school he really wanted to go to in the first place. So he pretty much went to Ohio State for the bag. You know, he was young too. I think he was only like 17 years old when he went on campus to Columbus as well. So Quinn Ewers kind of changed a lot of things with high school recruiting. I never really heard of guys reclassifying until, you know, Quinn Ewers did it. Foregone his final year in high school, goes to Ohio State, steals pretty much $1 million from him, goes to Texas, and, you know, he's had a good career, but he hasn't been great. And that's my whole point.